I will also introduce to you, and which will cover different topics from politics to law, economics. And in the end, we will have a panel discussion, which, so to say, is intended to sum up, bring up every kind of questions, every kind of topic you want to discuss in this respect. Even though we are a lawyers association, and as such we could talk about dry legal topics for hours, we have tried to also blend in some other views in the mix to round up the topic. And therefore, I'm very happy that, as I already mentioned, we have a panel. Also, we have some experts from the political side and from the economical side to also bring up the broader picture and also deal with, so to say, the matter more generally. The topic itself, the European-Vietnam Investment Protection Agreement, is a very interesting, relevant, and also challenging topic. The investment relationship between the EU and Vietnam is a very important one. Vietnam is one of the biggest trading partners of the EU in goods, and it is also the largest trading partner, or one of the largest trading partners of the EU in the ASEAN community. While the EU mainly exports high-tech products, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, Vietnam's main exports are telephones, electronic products, footwear, textiles, but of course also coffee, rice, seafood. With a total foreign direct investment of around 6 billion, this is a figure from 2019, the EU is one of the largest foreign investors in Vietnam. And from my personal experience, I know that this is even bigger because a lot of companies also tend to invest via their regional headquarters in Singapore or Hong Kong, which then is, so to say, formally recognized as Hong Kong or Singaporean investments. The free trade agreement and the investment protection agreements are therefore an important step in the growing economic relationship. While the free trade agreement already entered into force last year, the investment protection agreement is still in the ratification process due to some different inter-community requirements, which we certainly also will talk about later. The investment protection agreement is a so-called new area investment protection agreement, which involves several new approaches, both for the European Union as well as for Vietnam. And that makes it especially challenging and especially interesting to talk about this today and take a closer look, as we will do. For the further process, I already mentioned, we will have the speakers per panel, first the politic panel, then we'll have the law panel, and then we will have the economic panel. Each of the two speakers per panel will be followed by a Q&A session. So that means you will have the possibility to post your questions. I will also highlight shortly again how this is done. Before or after the speakers, we will have a coffee break, which we will organize. Of course, we cannot stand together and enjoy our coffees, but we will organize via a breakout rooms session. You will be assigned to a breakout room, but you will also be free to move around. So like with the coffee tables that we all know and miss, we will have the opportunity to go there and also leave politely if we like to. Yes, then last but not least, before we start, we have to go into some of the technical aspects. Even though we all have now 1.5 years of Zoom and team professionalism, we know that there's always something to discover, and Murphy's Law always strikes. So let's have a quick look at this. Everybody knows Zoom. What we have here for the questions today, and you're welcome to post questions, and I saw that's already done. We use a tool named Slido. You have a QR code here where you have the possibility to install this on your mobile device, but we also have a link which will be posted in the chat. So you also have the possibility to, so to say, open this up in a browser, and there you can feel free to post your questions. If you want to, so to say, be identified, then please state also your name, because the questions in Slido will only show the question. If you want to, so to say, have your name, please state it. And also, if you would like to address a certain person, it would be helpful if you could say, please, Dr. Bote, Dr. Choi, whoever, Dr. Wing, and then, so to say, make clear whom the question is addressed to. We will collect the questions. You're welcome to post at any time, and we will take them up for the Q&A session, and we will also collect them for the panel discussion. So hopefully none of the questions will be lost. And of course, we also have the possibility, or you have the possibility, to actively participate. I think we are all responsible persons, so we decided that we, so to say, as we would have in a formal panel, in a personal panel, we will have you there. We can see you if you want. Yeah, we have your video, and you can also mute and unmute yourself if you want to raise a question. Please use the raise hand function in Zoom, which you can find in the, I think, reaction button down there. If you click on this, you can find the raise hand. And then a little hand will show up showing that you have a question, and we will try to get this, so to say, recognize you. As I already mentioned, for the breakout room function, you will be assigned to the breakout room. You are free to move around. You can go back to the main room. You can go to another room. If there are any questions in between, we have the chat on Zoom, which our technical team from CVDUC, the Vietnamese Students Organization that is supporting us today, will attend, and they will take up your questions. So if there is anything, please feel free to post it. So I think that's everything from my side at the moment. Then we will start, and I'm happy that we will start with welcome addresses from the Vietnamese and the German side. First of all, let me shortly introduce from Hanoi, Ms. Lai Thi Van An, the Vice General Director of the International Law Department.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Now I think you all got the message that this is recorded. We have a YouTube live stream. So please acknowledge that you are okay with this, or leave if you are not okay with it. Of course, this is your decision. Sorry, I will start again with Lai Thi Van An. Sorry for the interruption. The Vice General Director of the International Law Department at the Vietnamese Ministry of Justice in Hanoi. She has a working experience of more than 20 years in the areas of foreign direct investment, international trade law, and also international dispute settlement. So she is very much involved into this whole process, and I'm very happy to hear from you, Ms. Lai. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Yan. Good morning, colleagues and friends. First of all, it's my honor and pleasure to be invited to attend and have some welcoming remarks to you all in this very important event. I would also like to thank the organizers of this event in bringing us all together in this conference to discuss one of very important current political, legal, and economic issues between Vietnam and EU, the EU-Vietnam Investment Protection Agreement. As you may all aware that the negotiation of the EVIPA was started in 2012. At the earlier stage, it was designed and negotiated as a chapter of the overall EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement. Then, due to several legal issues arising regarding the delimitation of power between the Union and its member states, the EU had proposed to separate the provisions on investment protection into a separate agreement, and it is now we have the EVIPA. And actually, I was also involved in the negotiation of the EVFTA and the EVIPA, especially during the splitting of the two agreements, the agreement into two. The EVIPA was signed by the parties on 30th of June 2019 and already be ratified by our National Assembly on 8th of June 2020. The agreement will come into force after being ratified by all EU members, and we hope that this process will be sped up. As you may be heard, the EVIPA is believed to be an investment treaty with a number of advances that can address many problems of the old generation investment treaties, especially regarding the standards of treatments and mechanisms for settlement of disputes between investor and state, the ISDS. And actually, I myself also involved directly in the ISDS process, not only settlement of the disputes of the government of Vietnam, but also participates in the process of reforming this mechanism at the UNCITRAN. So with my experience, I myself highly evaluated the contents, the provisions, and the advances of the EVIPA. So I hope that in this conference will be the good opportunities for us to learn and share our views, our experiences on the EVIPA, as well as we would have some very useful and good recommendations for the effective implementation of the agreement when being into force. With that, I would like to wish that the conference would be great success. And once again, allow me to thank the organizers for inviting me to attend this conference. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Lai, for your words from Hanoi. I move over to our next welcome address from Ms. Svetlana Shravoronkova. She is a senior legal advisor, Asia Pacific and Israel at the German Federal Bar Association. And from such, it's visible she's responsible for the relations to partners, also amongst others from the Asia Pacific region. And she has also herself studied and worked, amongst others, in Asia. She speaks Mandarin. And as I know also from my personal experience, having met her, she is also involved and interested in Vietnam. Mrs. Shravoronkova, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Dijksel, for this warm welcome and the introduction. Yes, dear Luan, dear Ms. Lai, and all participants, dear panelists. I'm also happy to be part of today's webinar on the topic of the EU-Vietnam Investment Protection Agreement, which was signed in 2019. And yes, it's the first kind of this, it's the first kind of this agreement which has been signed between the European Union and the developing country in Asia. So, of course, it is a very interesting topic and also a very important topic, defining new ways of relations between the EU and Asia. And I'm also very interested what has been done since the signing of this agreement in 2019, especially in these complicated and crisis-ridden times, which also put challenges to the legal profession. Yes, the German Federal Bar, as already mentioned, has very close ties with the legal profession in Vietnam. Our cooperation is basically we have our partners. Our original partner is the Vietnam Bar Federation, which is the body representing the legal profession in Vietnam. And our cooperation was established in 2010. Today, the Vietnam Bar Federation is one of our most important partners in Asia. The main focus of our cooperation has been the self-administration of lawyers, also the lawyers' professional law, but we do not only cooperate in the field of the professional law, but also on various legal topics which are interesting for the legal profession in the current times. We have been doing a lot on criminal procedural law, and also in strengthening the rights of defense lawyers. And most of our projects are rooted in the strategic partnership between the two countries, which was concluded in 2011. And it's also rooted in the Vietnamese-German rule of law dialogue. And since 2010, we have had more than 30 workshops, seminars, study trips, and expert discussions in Germany and Vietnam. Of course, our activity in the past 2 years was also influenced by the crisis. So we are hoping very much that this will be over soon, and that we can meet in person. And but we also will have in the second half of 2021 some more webinars, and on the topic, which is also interesting for under the EVIPA, because we now decided also to have a legal exchange on topics like resolving contract disputes and compensation under contract law and under tort law. So I think this is especially interesting when having cross-border transaction and also investment deals. So I'm very much looking forward to the introduction about the dispute settlement mechanisms under the EVIPA. And yes, again, I would like to thank the German-Vietnamese Lawyers Association for organizing the second annual conference. Unfortunately, again, online. I was hoping to be able to attend the conference in person. But yes, I hope that next year this will be possible again. And yes, I wish all participants an interesting event and all experts a fruitful exchange. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Schaboronkowa. Yes, and thank you very much for the both welcome addresses, which gives a good introduction. So let's get into the matter. We will start with the politics panel, and here I'm very happy to welcome Dr. Nguyen Man Hai. He's a counselor and head of investment section at the Vietnamese embassy in Berlin, and he's also working at the Vietnamese Ministry of Planning and Investment. Dr. Nguyen is focusing on promoting two-way foreign direct investments between Vietnam and Germany and the EU in his current position. And he has also a substantial working and research experience as an advisor for the Vietnamese government, amongst others as the director of a research department for social issues of Siem, leading economic think tank in Vietnam under the MPI. He has also led and participated in various economic research projects by the World Bank, the UNDP, the Asia Development Bank, and international universities. So I think he's very well suited to give us an introduction into the matter. Dr. Nguyen will talk about investment in Vietnam and especially investment incentives for foreign direct investments in Vietnam. Dr. Nguyen, please, the floor is yours. Please share your screen. I will stop my now.
Thank you very much, Jen, and good morning to everyone in Berlin, and good afternoon to everyone in Hanoi. And I'm sharing my screen now. I'm sorry, it takes a little bit time. Have you seen the screen? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it's coming up.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to express my special thanks to the German-Vietnamese Lawyer Association for inviting me to participate in very fruitful event now at the second annual conference of the association. And I think the topic of EVIPA is very very good and very useful for Vietnamese and also the EU at the moment. And I think so in this context, I just would like to mention about the one aspect of the investment incentive for foreign direct investment in Vietnam. And I also hope that the EVIPA will also ensure that the investment incentive for the EU investor would be implemented properly in Vietnam, and to protect the EU as Vietnamese investors during the process investing in Vietnam or in EU. For the investment incentive for investment in Vietnam, eventually the policy is also under the process, and we are waiting now for special incentive policies. I mean specific special incentive policy which will come out maybe in the next few months, and the draft now is also already on the table of the Ministry of Planning and Investment. But for this presentation, I just put at first the current investment incentives for FDI in Vietnam. First of all, I also would like to mention about the economic growth in Vietnam for 2011-2020, and so we can mention we can see on the screen that the average the economic growth of about 6 to 7% until before the COVID pandemic, and in 2020 the economic growth of Vietnam decreased to 2.9%, but the positive thing is still the positive growth, and for the first 6 months of 2021, so it's still it's good with 5.6% economic growth, but the current situation in Vietnam it is not that good, because as you also may know that the COVID pandemic is increasing in Vietnam at the moment, and of course we hope. I think we hope that we also can have better situation in the next few months with the very strict measures of the government as well as from the local government. So we hope that we can come back to the normal situation at the end of the year or so. For the FDI in Vietnam of the some EU and some European countries. So the Germany ranked 17 among the all countries investing in Vietnam up to now. The statistic was at the 20th of May this year, and with the 391 project, and with more than 2.2 billion total FDI capital invested in Vietnam, and also for the direction of the orientation of the FDI cooperation or attraction by 2030 in Vietnam, and Vietnamese government have the solution of number 50 and we have a number of targets. But the three main targets is that the foreign investors economic sector is an important component of Vietnamese economy. And also the FDI is encouraged and facilitated for long-term development, and also to promote the healthy competition with the other economic sector. And the state respect and protect the legitimate rights and interests of investors. And this is also one of the principles that mentioned in the resolution number 50, which is in the 2019, issue in 2019. And secondly, it's also try to build and complete the institution and the policy for FDI in line with the development trends, and also in line with the international advanced standards, and harmonize with the international commitments, ensuring the synchronization as consistency with the international advanced standards. And also the major orientation is that we try to prioritize the project with advanced technology, also the new and high technology, clean technology and modern management, or the project with high value added, or the project with the very good spillover effects, or technology transfer, or the project with the good connection to the global supply chains. This is extremely the orientation of the FDI attraction of Vietnam by 2030, and is during that process, I think as you can see, that we also try to ensure and protect the legitimate rights and interests of investor, which is also in line with the EVIPA. And also for the investment incentive itself. So we have at first the forms of investment incentive in Vietnam, including the four main forms. The first one is the incentive on the corporate income tax, including the lower tax rate or tax exemption or the reduction, and other tax incentive for part of the full project life, and for the specific policy of corporate income tax. I will come up at the one slide later on. And also another form of incentive is the import tax exemption for the good imported to create fixed access, or the imported goods for raw materials, supplies, and components, and goods imported to processing, or the products are processed for export, or imported goods for export production in accordance with the law on export tax and import tax. And another form, the third form of the investment incentive, is the exemption or reduction of land rental, land use fee, or land levy. And this is also specified in the laws, the land laws of Vietnam, as well as others bylaws of the land law as well. And also the last form of the investment incentive is the fast depreciation, which is mentioned in the newly issued investment law in 2020, and with some of the project under the investment incentive, so they can have faster depreciation compared to normal one. And also For the industries that are entitled to special investment in Vietnam. In Vietnam, we have two categories of the project that are entitled to special investment incentive and also to the investment incentive, the normal investment incentive as well. So for this, for those who are entitled to special investment incentive, we have, for example, the high-tech industry, supporting industry, electronics industry, also the information technology industry, financial services, green energy, infrastructure, healthcare, education and training, high-tech agriculture, and research and development. But of course, for the specific list of the industry entitled to special investment incentive are provided in decree number 31, and which are very in detail. And so we can see on the appendix 2 of this decree, in very detail the industry that entitled to special investment incentive. In terms of the geographical the incentive, so we also have the areas that are eligible for investment incentive, including the area with difficult socio-economic condition and the area with the extremely difficult socio-economic condition. And the list of these location also are also in the bylaws of the investments law. And also the another areas that also eligible for investment incentive is the industrial zone and also processing zone, high-tech zone, and also economic zone in Vietnam. We also have more specifically on the incentive on corporate income tax. For example, so we have the tax deduction and duration of the tax deduction. For example, according to the incentive, the normal incentive for the CIT is regulated by the current law, for example, the investment law in 2014 and corporate income tax 2013 and decree 218. So this is with this, so we have 10% tax rate in 20 years for the project that are eligible, and also for the tax exemption. Apply for 4 years, and then 50% tax exemption for the next 9 years. Also for for those eligible. What is the eligible according to this is that the project that prioritized is under the list of prioritized investment industry, or under the list of prioritized investment location that I have mentioned, or the project with the scope or with the capital of at least 6,000 billion Vietnamese dong, and dispersing a minimum of 6,000 billion Vietnamese dong in 3 years. But for the special incentives, I mean special investment incentive, according to the new investment law, the law number 61 in 2020. So the tax deduction is with the tax rate just 5% for a maximum period of 37.5 years. And also the tax exemption apply for the maximum tax exemption period of 6 years, and a minimum reduction of 50% for a maximum of 13 years, with the project investment project that have huge economic impact on social development, or with the project with the investment of over 30,000 billion Vietnamese dong, or the investment with the project that established the innovation center or the R&D center, etc. And also the others, the additional requirement for project with additional requirement for advanced technology, or the percentage of Vietnamese business in participating in the supply chain, or percentage, a certain percentage of production by Vietnamese businesses, for example. But for the very specific stipulation or regulation, so we can look at the at the investment law as well as the bylaws of this one. For the implementation of investment incentive in the context of EVIPA in the future. So we all know that the European Parliament in February 2020 already ratified the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, as well as the EU-Vietnam EVIPA. But the EVIPA came into force since the 1st of August last year. However, we also, as also Jen mentioned, that the EVIPA is still subject to a EU member ratification. And this process, of course, we all know that we would like to speed up so that the EVIPA would have to would come into force as soon as possible, and I hope in the near future, so that we can have the legal stipulation to protect the investors as well as the investment in EU and in Vietnam, and to ensure that they will be given fair treatment. And also in the context of the investment incentive as well as the special investment incentives. So I hope that it would have to ensure the investment incentive to be properly implemented for the beneficiaries of EU investor in Vietnam, to boost the FDI in Vietnam as well as the for the mutual benefit of the EU and Vietnam. And I'm not a lawyer, but of course, so I'm very happy that if the lawyers would have to, all the lawyers, the Vietnamese and German lawyers, and also especially the German Lawyer Association, or German Vietnamese Lawyer Association, and Vietnamese Lawyer Association. So we will all try to speed up, to promote and to analyze the benefits of the EVIPA for the business of the both sides, and we can have the EVIPA in practice in the coming time. And thank you very much. That all that I want to share. And also I'm very happy to also to hear from you also our opinion and also discussion. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Nguyen, for this interesting introduction into the investment area and climate and the potential incentives there. We would now move to our next speaker here. So, sorry, you need to stop your screen sharing, Dr. Nguyen.
Yeah, I'm stopped. Okay.
Otherwise, I'm handicapped here. Now I can move on. Yes. So, and I'm very happy to also now, after, so to say, the Vietnamese perspective to the whole topic, to welcome Dr. Adrian Bothe, the head of Division of Economics, Economic Relations with Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand at the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy. Dr. Bothe has been with the ministry since 1989, and besides his current position, he has also acted as an assistant head of different other divisions, personal assistant to the state secretary, as well as a speechwriter to the minister. He has also a non-legal background, a refreshing non-legal background. He has a background in geography and economics, with advanced studies in European economy at the College of Europe, and also international economic policy research at the Kiel Institute. I'm thus happy to welcome him now here and give him the opportunity to add also different angle to our discussion. He will talk about Vietnam and Germany, partners in the changing world. Dr. Bothe, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator, for your very flattering introduction. It's always nice to hear these things. And anyway, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends from Vietnam and Germany, a very good morning and a good afternoon to all of you. It's a pleasure indeed to see some familiar faces, and it is of course a pleasure to be able to contribute to today's conference by way of some introductory remarks. If I'm not entirely mistaken, a colleague of mine actually was able to make a contribution to your first conference. Let me say this, should there be a third conference that you organize, we will be happy to take part. But you will have to decide after my little presentation. So if you decide, let's take somebody else, then that would be fine as well. Let me start by saying that I'm very grateful for the insightful presentation that was just given by my colleague from the Vietnamese embassy in Berlin, by Dr. Nguyen. And may I add that we have been enjoying a particularly close and fruitful working relationship with the embassy in Berlin. And we're looking forward to continuing this in the weeks and in the months to come. And Dr. Nguyen has already outlined a couple of points that I'm sure we will be taking up together, also with our colleagues in Hanoi and Saigon. So this has been mentioned before, but I shall just dwell on it for a couple of, just for a few moments. We are indeed all grappling with the necessities that have arisen from the pandemic. We are very much aware of the fact that much has changed, the way we organize our daily lives, the way we work and interact with colleagues and friends. Now, something that has not changed at all, in our view at least, is the excellent relations between Germany and Vietnam, in particular in the fields of trade and investment. Yes, there have been some hiccups, there have been some problems with supply chains or with the calibration of pandemic-induced restrictions, I believe, in both countries. But there can be no doubt that Vietnam ranks high among the countries that have been able to successfully deal with the effects, both medical and economic, of the pandemic. Dr. Nguyen just pointed out current growth rates, which I believe are impressive. And these achievements continue to be noted here in Germany with great respect. Vietnam is very likely to be among the few countries worldwide that will not have slipped into recession due to the pandemic, despite the overall economic circumstances. And this, in our view, is yet another reason why Vietnam continues to be valued as a thoroughly reliable partner, not only in Germany, but in many other parts of the world. And just very briefly, because today's topic is the investment protection agreement, we will discuss it in great detail, I believe, or in some detail at least. So both the IPA and the FTA are, in our view, crucial elements of the developing economic relationship between Germany and Vietnam, and of course Europe and Vietnam in that respect. The FTA is in place. We will have to work on making it work, I believe, and we're making good progress with it. The IPA, this has been mentioned before, was signed already in mid-2019. And the ratification is, let's say, a work in progress. both our moderator and Dr. Wind alluded to it, and they were being very polite. Let's be frank, it is a bit of an embarrassment on the European side, but this is how things are. There are certain points still, let's say, under scrutiny. There are court procedures going on in the German Federal Constitutional Court that have so far prevented Germany from ratifying the IPA. You all know this. 6 other countries on the European side have ratified. Germany hasn't yet. This doesn't mean that we don't want it. We do want it indeed, and we want to have it as fast as possible. But I'm afraid we will have to be a little patient still. Just one small remark, and just sort of adding to what Dr. Wynn just said, I believe there is protection in place between Germany and Vietnam, because the old agreement is still working. I may be wrong, but this is my information, and I think this is reassuring to some extent. We all know we need the new agreement, but to have the old agreement and not to have stopped it working like some other countries in the region actually have done, I think was a wise decision in Hanoi. So I think it's fair to say that our bilateral economic relations are in good shape, and high-ranking visits and contacts during the last couple of years have helped maintaining this. It is true, we have to look back to the year 2019, which seems very, very far away, for the last visit of a German Federal Minister of Economic Affairs to Vietnam. But nonetheless, we consider this visit, which was made with a delegation comprising of members of the German Parliament and business representatives, a good success. On the occasion of this visit, the Vietnamese-German Bilateral Economic Committee was established. This committee is, let's say, it's a working organism, right? It is co-chaired by the Vietnamese Minister of Trade and Industry and by the German Federal Minister of Economic Affairs, with the aim of having both Vietnamese and German business representatives discuss with the ministers, right, their respective projects of cooperation. So we, here in Germany, we have been using this particular format of exchange and consultation with other partners from the Asia-Pacific region. And we're very, very happy to be able to make it operational with our Vietnamese friends as well. There was something more I wanted to say about this committee, but I will not do it because I think we're a little short on time, and it's we can discuss it later should the need arise. Suffice to say that one such meeting has already taken place in a virtual format. This is how things are nowadays. We do hope that things will change and that we will have an in-person meeting soon. Let's say, well, we're going to have our elections here, maybe beginning of next year. This is something we would wish for, at least. And we'll see what our Vietnamese friends and partners have to say to this. Now, the ministerial delegation visit to Vietnam and the meeting of the Bilateral Economic Committee were things that we found very, very useful. And in both these events, the delegation of German business in Vietnam was an important actor and contributor. It is indeed, don't blush, Marco, right? I'm going to say it anyway. It is one of the pillars of cooperation at the forefront of making Vietnamese-German economic relations work in a practical way, and we're very grateful for it. And I believe the delegation of German business went to some lengths in making flights happen from Germany to Vietnam in an effort to speed up the recovery of economic relations between the two countries. Unfortunately, for the last flight, there were some problems that we can not be happy about. I'm sure our Vietnamese friends are unhappy about it either. And we will try to discuss this in the foreseeable future to try to contribute to a situation in which this would not be repeated. So what is it that we have with Vietnam. And Vietnam is a special country for us. This is easily said. I know I might say the same thing about Singapore or Indonesia, but we all know, and you and your association maybe know it much better than many other people, there is a special relationship between Germany and Vietnam for various reasons. We're grateful for it, and we are prepared to build on it. We want this relationship to develop and to unfold further, and we're confident that we will be able to maintain and expand whatever is of interest to the business communities and to the people working and doing research and doing all sorts of things to make a living and to improve their lives. This is actually at the heart of the matter. And as always, it is personal relationships that count. This is what we notice. This is what I have been experiencing in my work with our Vietnamese partners and friends, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it. I really am. And your organization, the German-Vietnamese Lawyers Association, has an important role to play in this. So it's a good thing. It's a very good thing that you're making the effort of having this conference today. It's the second conference. Hopefully there will be a third and a fourth. We're keeping our fingers crossed. We want to make Vietnam and Germany, progress together as partners in a changing world. So thank you all very much indeed for your kind attention, and I'll be happy to take any questions should they arise. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Bothe and Dr. Nguyen as well. I think, the special relationship, Dr. Bothe, you laid this out. This is definitely a particular one and an important one. The Joint Economic Committee, the strategic partnership that we have, the rule of law dialogue. There are a lot of cooperations with Vietnam, and I think that shows from both sides how far and how deep this goes. And despite some obstacles in every relationship, it has been going and it will continue. Yes, we are coming now, let me see here, to the Q&A session. I post again this link here, or encourage everybody to post some questions to Dr. Nguyen or to Dr. Bothe. We already received some of them, and in this respect, I would like to start with you, Dr. Nguyen. There was a question concerning Vietnam also. Do you see some conflicts with the local industry when foreign investors come to Vietnam? Could the local industry, the challenges that the free trade agreement, the investment protection agreement, that this might, so to say, also pose for local industries, how this, so to say, can and will be dealt with? This is one of the questions that we received here, and I will give it to you.
Okay. Thank you, Jan. And I'm very happy to see that, we deal with the issue, whether there is the conflict between the FDI project and local industries. In general, I would like to say that, of course, it depends on the specific project. But basically, if the FDI project that are approved and that are under the they are allowed to invest in Vietnam. And I think the level of the negative impacts for the local industry is small, from my view. Of course, we have to accept the competition in the market between the businesses and they. On one side, the local industry or local businesses have fiercer competition from FDI project in the same industry. But on the other hand, is when have the local business or the domestic business in Vietnam also need to upgrade or to build up their capacity to compete well in the market. And also another positive effects of FDI project is that they will have some spillover effects, some positive spillover effects for the Vietnamese businesses as well. Maybe some local Vietnamese business will also participate in the global supply chains of the FDI project. So basically, I think the positive impact is outweigh the negative impact from that side. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, thank you very much as well. Maybe also a question to both of you. We are looking, I mean, we talked about, so to say, foreign investors coming to Vietnam, but of course it is also the other direction that we are looking at. Yeah, Vietnamese investors coming to Germany or Europe as such. Maybe both of you could just generally share your thoughts on how the investment protection agreement and maybe also the free trade agreement will, so to say, support, facilitate this area.
Maybe both of us, and then I will come.
Why don't you start, Dr. Wen, to start?
Okay, thank you. Yes, actually, because my duty is also promote the two ways FDIs in Vietnam as well as in Germany. And already we have a number of projects invested in Germany, and in recent year we have also some the larger project coming to Germany and also in EU. And I think for the EVIPA, I think it's also good for Vietnamese investor in EU and in Germany because they will have better views of the and also the consistent legal framework in EU in general, not only in Germany or in other specific EU countries. And they also have they can know the information better when they enter the market of the EU market or in German market, because in the past I think they need to have much more time to identify or to look for the information that how they can incorporate or in the EU economy, why they invested there. But now they have better framework, the better legal framework for that, and so that they will encouraged and they will be promoted to invest it in EU in some specific areas that they have the advantage. And so in that sense, I also am very happy that and the Vietnamese business or investor also have great interest in the ratification of the EVIPA. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Just very briefly, I think this is really a very important question because here in Germany, we sometimes tend to think of foreign direct investment as something that sort of goes out of Germany and goes into other countries, which is a good thing. But when you look at the bilateral economic trade and investment relationship of Vietnam and Germany, of course, a quintessential element of it would be that many more indeed Vietnamese companies set up business in Germany, invest in Germany. You're more than welcome. You know this. If you don't, then we have a communication problem. We should talk about it. But I'm sure you're aware of the fact that Vietnamese companies are more than welcome here in Germany, at the heart of the European market. There is lots of information available. There is a thing called Germany Trade and Invest. It's an organization that is part of my ministry. They stand ready to give information. There is, of course, the delegation of German business in Vietnam who know all about it as well. So I wouldn't be able to say how much exactly the free trade agreement and then later, which is because it's not yet in place, the IPA will help this. But the direction, I believe, is clear. The devil will be in the detail. I would be surprised if this wouldn't be the case. But there is a great deal of goodwill, and we're welcoming Vietnamese investors. It's just it's going to be the normal thing, and it's going to develop in that direction. And this is what we want, and this is what is good for both Vietnam and Germany. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bothe and Dr. Wing. Maybe a final question now for our Q&A session here. We have a lot of other questions coming in, but I think we will take this up also for the panel discussion later on. Dr. Bothe, you mentioned already that the process in Europe is, so to say, not fast-moving process, yeah. We will hear a bit more about, so to say, why this is the case, or the technicalities why this is so. But you also mentioned that it so far 6 countries have ratified it. Germany is not yet one of it. I mean, I know that probably you also don't have the timetable in front of you, but maybe it would be possible for you to share some more ideas on the potential time frame that we may be able to expect when Germany will, so to say, ratify the investment protection agreement?
I saw this coming, and even though I'm not able to give you a precise date, not even a tentative date, I'm glad to be able to say something about it. We are in the hands, and you as lawyers will understand that even better, much better probably than I do. We are in the hands of the German Federal Constitutional Court. There are some issues being discussed there. These are entirely unrelated to what we want to do with Vietnam. These are things we have still on our plates because of the free trade agreement and the investment protection agreement between the European Union and Canada. Certain aspects that were challenged in court, and so while theoretically we stand ready as government, and in the end it's going to be the Parliament, obviously, to ratify, we feel it unwise to do so as long as we cannot be sure that nothing untoward is going to happen, because there will be that court ruling that might create problems after ratification, right? So we have our, let's say, pens ready, right? So more important people than I am, of course, but we feel it is a wise move to wait. We cannot, I mean, those judges, you know this, we cannot ask them, gosh, how long is this going to take? And why haven't you decided yet? This is just not the way things are being done, neither in Vietnam, nor in Germany, nor in Europe. So we have to be patient, but I can assure you that we will do whatever is possible to speed up things, because we don't have all that much time. We're not in a position here in Germany, here in Europe, we're not in a position to just lean back and wait for things to develop. We want this to happen as quickly as possible, but there is the court has not published some sort of, let's say, timetable. Frankly, I don't know if this will be part of their procedures. Maybe it is. Maybe this will happen. You will know this better. But we'd be most interested in hearing from them in the wonderful town of Karlsruhe. So I believe we should all keep our fingers crossed and wait for the wisdom to be dispensed as soon as possible. But I'm afraid this is all I can say. It's not much. I'm sort of, I'm making a little souffle. You all notice this, but I hope you feel the goodwill.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, I think it gives us confidence seeing your pen already in the hand there. So I think that is the most we can expect out of this for the moment. So thank you very much for the moment right now. I understand that Dr. Bothe will unfortunately not be able to join us later at the panel discussion, but if there are any questions, Dr. Bothe, you already indicated that so to say, we can also send as a follow-up, so this could be subsequently also be answered. And yeah. Thank you very much for your input, Dr. Bothe. Thank you very much, Dr. Wing. And we will now move on to the second panel, which now will, so to say, deal with the legal aspects. And now we come, so to say, in our main field here as a lawyer association. As already mentioned, it is, so to say, a new area, IPA, and there is a lot to discuss and a lot that is unknown. And so I'm very happy that we have a very qualified speaker today here from the German side, as well as from the Vietnamese side, to shine some more light on this. And first of all, I would like to welcome Dr. Julian Scheu. He is a junior professor of public law, international law, and international investment law at the University of Cologne. And he's also the head of management of the International Investment Law Center in Cologne. And as you can see from there, he is very much focused on international economic law, European law, and also international dispute settlement and comparative administrative law. He also previously worked at the German Arbitration Institute, DIS, so he has also a big, so to say, practical background. And yeah, Dr. Scheu will now talk about entering a new area of European investment policies. Dr. Scheu, the floor is yours. Please share your screen. I will stop mine now.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. It is a great pleasure to be here with you today. I hope that you can all see my screen.
Yes.
Wonderful. So indeed, I will be talking about the question whether the EU-Vietnam Investment Protection Agreement, the EVIPA, marks the entering to a new era of European investment policy. And just maybe as a short clarification at the very beginning to frame this topic, the question is whether we are entering a new era of European investment protection with regard to Vietnam. It does, of course, not mean that there is none at the moment, because Dr. Bothe was absolutely right. There are already investment treaties in place since the 1990s, which are valid today and which continue to be valid. There are many different investment treaties between other also European member states, not only Germany, but also the UK, France, Luxembourg, Belgium, etc. But now we are focusing about the future and which role the EVIPA plays in this context. So I will very briefly set the stage by looking at the two agreements in a nutshell, and then describe a little more the drafting history, because it must be understood in a European context, which explains its current form and status. We will then briefly look into the investment protection provided by the EVIPA, so the actual heart of the agreement, to then on this basis draw a conclusion. We already heard that we are actually speaking about two agreements, and from an investor's perspective, one might think that the EVIPA is the only game in town here, but that is not entirely true. So we have the trade agreement and the investment protection agreement, which is our main focus, of course. But it is worth taking a short moment for a brief comparison from an investor's perspective, because the trade agreement also contains a subsection on investment liberalization, which is different from investment protection. But it is nevertheless noteworthy because in Article 8.4 of the trade agreement, there is a provision on market access applicable to foreign investments. And that is something investment protection typically does not include, because investment protection is only granted once a foreign investor's investment successfully has been established within a market, and then the applicability of the EVIPA provides also for many practically highly relevant investment protection standards, most notably here the obligation to provide investments with fair and equitable treatment and full protection and security, but also the protection from unlawful expropriation is of course relevant in this regard. When we compare the two agreements from a procedural perspective, we can note that the trade agreement is based on a state-to-state dispute settlement mechanism, whereas the EVIPA includes an investor-state dispute settlement. And I'm very happy and looking forward to the presentation of my colleague afterwards, who will shed more light on this in a moment. So with this legal framework in mind, I suggest we take a closer look to the drafting history of the EVIPA. And it all starts, at least if we put the focus on Europe, with the transfer of competence, which was associated with the entry into force of the Lisbon Treaty in 2009. Because the Article 207 of the TFEU, the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, contained the term foreign direct investment as one part of the common commercial policy. So this indicated that there was a transfer of competence by Article 207 from the member states to the Union. On this basis, the project of a comprehensive trade and investment agreement was launched between the EU and Vietnam in 2012. It took till August 2015, so relatively fast. I think that the two parties announced an agreement in principle on the substance of the deal. And then a few months later, the negotiations were completed, and the investment chapter of this comprehensive agreement now contained an investment court system, which is fundamentally different from the traditional ad hoc arbitration, which used to be included in the earlier drafts. Then in August 2018, the two parties agreed to split the comprehensive agreement into two separate standalone free trade and investment agreements. So this is the legal framework we are actually talking about today. Then in 2019, both agreements are signed. And in February 2020, the European Parliament approves both treaties. The Vietnam National Assembly ratifies both treaties. And as a consequence, the trade agreement enters into force. And as you all know, and as has been mentioned already several times, the EVIPA is not in force until today. So with this very quick walk through the drafting history, at least three questions arise. Why was there an investment court system included at the very last stage of the negotiation phase? Why the parties agreed to split the comprehensive agreement after the formal conclusion of the negotiations? And why is the trade agreement in force, whereas the investment treaty is not? So I would like to shed light on these questions. So it is very much related to the scope of the EU's exclusive competence for foreign direct investment under Article 207 of the TFEU, which I mentioned earlier. because here in the context of the EU-Singapore treaty project, a question arose with regard to the scope of this competence. And the Court of Justice of the European Union, the CJEU, rendered its opinion 215 in 2017 on the scope of this exclusive competence. And the court made several important clarifications. First of all, a distinction must be made between substantive investment protection and the procedural aspect of investor-state dispute settlement. The ISDS mechanism is not part of the EU's exclusive competence. It lays outside the scope of Article 207. And this is not the end of the story. In addition, a further distinction must be made between foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment. So here also the court clarified that portfolio investments do not fall under the exclusive competence of the Union. So the 207 is limited to substantive protection for foreign direct investment. So this clarification by opinion 215 led the Commission to change its strategy, basically, because it must take, of course, the competence within the Union and its member states into account. Any treaty which also covers foreign portfolio investments and an ISDS mechanism can only be concluded as a mixed agreement because it falls under the shared competence between the Union and its member states. And the consequences, which already have been addressed, is that the ratification from the EU side requires the approval by all national parliaments, and this leads to a long and politically significant ratification process. And against this background, it made absolutely sense to split the agreement into two parts, to basically carve out the investment protection chapter of the comprehensive agreement and make it a standalone agreement, so that we have an EU-only trade agreement on the one hand, which is easier to ratify, and on the other hand, let's say, more complicated issue of investment protection, which is now focused in the EVIPA as a mixed agreement. And this explains today's, not only today's legal framework, but also why the EVIPA is not in force until today. Last time I checked, I think 8 EU member states have so far ratified the EVIPA, but we see that there is still a lot to do in this context. The second question is why we saw an investment court system instead of traditional ad hoc arbitration. And I will very briefly explain the context here. You maybe recall the TTIP negotiations between the EU and the United States on a transatlantic trade and investment partnership, which took place in the years 2013 and onwards. These trade negotiations triggered a large and controversial public debate about the legitimacy of international trade agreements and international trade regulations. And due to very influential NGO reports on international investment arbitration, this general debate about international economic law also became aware of the role of investment arbitration tribunals and their which role they play in the overall political context. So this debate, which took the EU a little bit by surprise, I think, and all the governments as well, called into question the legitimacy of ISDS in its current form. And the EU saw that this political pressure created by the public debate threatened the ratification process of these new EU treaties, which were in the process of being negotiated and concluded. So the Commission developed a new approach to investment protection within a ongoing negotiation process. And the investment court system is one central element of this new approach. So we have to see these events in the context of the drafting history of the EVIPA, because they explain its current form, content, and status. And this is not only the negotiations with the US, which triggered public protests against ISDS, but also significantly the role of the European Court of Justice, who also, in its opinion 117, clarified that the investment court system is in principle compatible with EU law, which was not granted before, because it was a new approach to investment protection or to investor-state dispute settlement. And so this was a clarification which was important in April 2019. So let us now look into the investment protection which is in the EVIPA and how this plays out in this new approach of European investment policy. So the Commission commits to international investment as a key driver for economic development, but in addition also wants to provide protection for EU investors abroad, but at the same time acknowledges that older rules of investment protection have systemic shortcomings, and that the EU wants to lead in improving investment protection rules. So these are the official goals by this new approach to investment protection. And the question is the EVIPA investment agreement up to this task? And if we take this as a benchmark, I think we must ask whether the EVIPA provides effective protection, whether it contains innovative responses to the shortcomings that have been identified, and whether the EU is capable of setting new standards in the practice of international investment protection. Before we speak about the new approach adopted by EVIPA, we should maybe take a moment to understand what are these systemic concerns about traditional investment protection. And this is closely related to the question of legitimacy of ISDS, a very complex discussion. And I think my colleague will explain this in a little bit more detail. But from a substantive point of view, I think there is one important thing to recall. The treaty protection since the 1960s, states have concluded international investment agreements, and the treaty provisions were very vaguely formulated. So in vague terms, and as a consequence, arbitral tribunals who had to settle investment disputes on this basis had a very wide discretion in interpreting and applying these terms. And if you combine this with a system of ad hoc dispute settlement, so that there is no binding precedent, for each dispute, a single tribunal is constituted, which is not bound by any jurisprudence. If you combine this, you get a lot of legal uncertainty for investors and especially for states. So, and I think this is one root of the problem and the discussion, and why ISDS is so controversial today. So to illustrate this, I would like to take one example out of many. And I mentioned that earlier treaties are in force, which grant protection today and will grant protection tomorrow, is in our context the Germany-Vietnam BIT from 1993. And here Article 2.1 is very illustrates the problem. The agreement just says that parties shall in all cases treat investments fairly and equitably, full stop. Okay, so the question is, what is fair and equitable? And that is, so to speak, if you have no more in the agreement, completely up to the tribunals to consider. And the task for the contracting parties in the EVIPA was now to get over this and give a little bit more precision. So there are at least 3 drafting approaches you can take. So you can either define certain categories of cases, what you consider to be fair and equitable. You can lay down guiding principles. So in general, we consider this and that to be unfair or inequitable. And you can add clarifications for very specific problems you want to be sure that arbitral tribunals take into account when they interpret and apply this provision. So what is actually in the EVIPA? You see here now the Article 2.1, this is the old approach, fairly and equitably. And now if we look at Article 2.5 of the EVIPA, we see in the second paragraph, so the article is much longer, so I just gave you some outtakes here. And it exactly specifies by enumerating conclusively a number of categories, what the parties consider to be in a breach of fair and equitable treatment. And in addition, they describe the categories by adding legally relevant terms such as fundamental breach. They request manifest arbitrariness, or they require a targeted discrimination or manifestly wrongful grounds. So this again gives guidance to arbitral tribunals and makes them understand what the treaty parties consider to fall under fair and equitable treatment. In addition, the EVIPA also contains a guiding principle in Article 2.2. Here, the parties reaffirm their right to regulate within their territories to achieve legitimate policy objectives, such as, and then it comes a large list of potential and non-conclusive list of potential policy goals. So here, the parties make absolutely clear, in addition to this specification in Article 2.5, that tribunals must respect the right to regulate of the national or acting government of the host state. And as a cherry on top, so to speak, there are also additional clarifications that, for example, a party's decision not to issue, renew, or maintain a subsidy does not constitute a breach of investment protection. So this is a reaction to some arbitral practice, which took a rather wide approach, and the treaty parties make clear here that they do not want this kind of arbitral practice seen in the context of the EVIPA. So with all this in mind, does the EVIPA mark the entering into a new era of investment policy? If we come back to our benchmark, does it contain innovative responses and address the shortcomings of older investment protection rules, as we have seen, for example, in the Germany-Vietnam BIT? Yes, it definitely does. It adopts a whole new drafting approach, and also with respect to dispute settlement, the investment court system is a very innovative and new approach. So here, definitely yes. Does it provide effective protection in comparison to the older and current investment protection agreements? I think we have to put a question mark here. It depends, because the balance, investment protection is always about balancing private investment interests and public regulatory interests. And here the focus, as we have seen, is clearly on the right to regulate and the legitimate interests of the host states, with many, so the bar is relatively high. So we have to see how this plays out in arbitral practice. But I think we can for sure say that in extreme cases of manifest arbitrariness by a host state, effective protection is granted. And then the question is, does the EVIPA set new standards in practice? Well, here we have to say clearly no, because the whole process of ratification is just too slow. The EVIPA contains innovative responses, but if it takes so long to put them into force, it will take just too much time to really take the lead in improving the international investment law regime, because other actors and other treaties are concluded, signed, ratified, and enter into force over the world every day. So to conclude, the EVIPA certainly reflects the new EU investment policy and contains innovative approaches. It provides definitely more legal certainty for investors and host states in comparison to the current bilateral investment treaties concluded between EU member states and Vietnam. So it will replace those older treaties, and therefore definitely it is fair to say that it marks the beginning of a whole new era of EU investment policy. However, the B-moll here is, of course, only once it is ratified by the remaining 19 EU member states. And we have to see how long this process takes. But for this short conclusion at the moment, I'm very happy to the discussion and looking forward to respond to your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Scheu, for this valuable and very interesting insight into the background, the understanding, and also the perspective of how this can, so to say, develop. You mentioned already that the second speaker on our law panel, Ms. Doan, will go into the more details of the court system, which is, at least on the German side, was one of the main points of public discussion, and maybe still is. Yeah. So I'm very happy. Let me see. Now I have to get my things shared here again. I'm very happy to welcome now as our second speaker on the legal panel from Hanoi, Ms. Doan Tan Huynh, senior lecturer at the International Trade Law Faculty of the Hanoi Law University. Ms. Doan has previously worked for more than 10 years at the Vietnamese Ministry of Justice, where she was also directly involved in the investment treaty negotiations, as well as in investor-state dispute settlement. So she has a broad practical experience here as well. And she's also experienced in giving legal advice and also negotiating PPP projects between the Vietnamese government and foreign project developers. Ms. Doan, as already indicated, will now talk about reforming investor-state dispute settlement and the new approach with a court-like system under the EVIPA. Ms. Doan, the floor is yours, and please share your screen. I will stop mine.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dijksel. Okay, I will share my screen now. Okay, can you see my screen? Good morning and good afternoon, colleagues and friends.
Yes.
Allow me to warmly thank the organizers of this conference for giving me an opportunity to talk about EVIPA a new and very important investment treaty of Vietnam and the EU. And for me, it is an honor and pleasure. We have just listened to a very interesting and updated presentation by Dr. Choi about new era European investment policy that is reflected in EVIPA. Now my turn, I will talk about investor state dispute settlement mechanism under EVIPA. And in my point of view, I think it is a highlight of this agreement, and I will address some challenges to the current ISDS system, the new ISDS mechanism under EVIPA, and at the end, I will talk about the prospection of Vietnam and EU regarding the EVIPA implementation. As Dr. Choi has stated in his presentation, the legitimacy of the current ISDS system has been debated in recent years, and it has been based on the international commercial arbitration. And you all know that investors' that disputes are far different than commercial disputes. They are more related to public interests, political and regulatory measures taken by governments. And as you may know, the working group 3 of the UNCITRAL has been discussing about ISDS reforms in 2017, and one of the very significant parts of the discussion is to address the concern pertaining to current ISDS system. Dr. Choi has listed some very significant current ISDS systems, so I will go very quickly. I want to add some more, like the lengthy and costly, the incoherence and inconsistencies of investment arbitral award, the lack of a review mechanism, and no sufficient guarantees of independence and arbitrators, third-party funding and abuse of process, and so many other things. Concerns mostly came from respondent states because they have been attacking by investment arbitration, taking advantage of the defects of the current. Now look at this is the fourth investment treaty of Vietnam, providing an ISDS mechanism that is very similar to the multilateral court mechanism. Just look at the dispute settlement process. You can see here the consultation is the first phase of it, and it is compulsory. The time for consultation is 60 days from the date of submission of the request for consultation. It means that an investor must firstly seek a consultation with the host government before going to the further phases of the process. And you can see here mediation. Mediation is encouraged by both Vietnam and EU. And mediation may be requested at any time of the dispute settlement proceeding. And if the parties go to mediation, the time of mediation will not include in the time limit for consultation. And arbitration, it is the last resort that an investor can do if consultation and mediation don't bring the outcome. The claim shall be submitted after 6 months as from the date of request for consultation, or 3 months from the date of submission of notice of intent. And now we will have a look at the investment tribunal system. And you can see that it looks like a domestic court system with the court of first trial and court of appeal. The tribunal consists of 9 members, of which 3 from Vietnam, 3 from EU, and 3 from third countries. The tribunal members working on a full-time basis in the term of 4 years. The retainer fees for them shall be paid by both Vietnam and EU members. The tribunal division to hear a specific case shall be appointed by the tribunal president on a rotation basis. The appeal tribunal will review awards made by the tribunal. It consists of 6 members, of which 2 from Vietnam, 2 from EU, and 2 from third countries. The term works and remuneration of the appeal tribunal members are similar to those applied to the tribunal members. This is in my point of view, this is a very different point from the current ISDS system, where arbitrators are selected by the disputing parties. And because of the small pool of arbitrators, an arbitrator may be appointed repeatedly or may have a double heading. Now we can look at some of the very updated provisions of EVIPA that, in my opinion, they address concerns pertaining to the current ISDS system that I have mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. You can see them here in the slide I am sharing. In my point of view, this provision can more or less prevent the abuse of process in investment arbitration. For example, EVIPA set forth conditions precedent for an investor to submit a claim against a host state. It also addresses third-party funding and security for courts. In the context that there have been many debates regarding whether or not third-party funding is allowed in international arbitration, EVIPA requires notification of third-party funding, including the existence and the nature of the funding agreement, name and address of the funder. And the tribunal under EVIPA may order the claimant to provide security for courts. I think that the provisions are very useful for preventing frivolous claims from being submitted. Also, a tribunal under EVIPA may decline jurisdiction to hear dispute if at the time when the claimant acquired ownership or control the investment subject to the dispute, he has acquired such ownership and control for the main purpose of submitted the claim under EVIPA. And this provision, I think that it clearly can prevent treaty shopping. About prospection, Vietnam highly appreciates the partnership with the EU and looking forward to the implementation of both EVIPA and EVFTA. We have been carrying out some preparation for such implementation. For example, in June 2020, our National Assembly issued a resolution on recognition and enforcement of awards rendered under EVIPA in Vietnam. And for more information, as a part of our effort for a radical reform of our investment treaties, in 2019, our government directed the Ministry of Planning and Investment and the Ministry of Justice to review all the investment treaties of Vietnam to see which treaties should be terminated and which ones should be remain. I agree with Dr. Choi that in the future, EVIPA will replace existing bilateral investment treaties between Vietnam and EU members. This is to avoid the fragmentation of international investment treaties that may result in divergent levels of protection and inconsistency in applying and interpreting treaty provision. And we also expect that EVIPA will be ratified soon by the EU members so that we can open a new chapter of investment cooperation. That's all I want to share about EVIPA, and thank you for listening for my presentation. And for any issues that you want me to explain more, I'm happy to answer in the Q&A session.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Luan. Yes, for this also valuable deepening there of the tribunal aspects. Could you please stop your screen sharing so I could, so to say, continue with mine? And then we would move over here to the, let me see, it's always a lot of multitasking involved here, to the Q&A sessions. Also regarding the legal panel, we actually received a lot of questions, and I would just now try to maybe take up one or two for our session right now, and then we would later look at the panel discussion where we also could more deeply discuss it, maybe also from some insights or some ideas, some thoughts from the economic and political part. So I think one of the discussion points, I mean, I would take this up as it concerns, so to say, both of your presentations now, the tribunal system. We understood and we learned that this is, so to say, a new approach now, a new approach to overcome some of the deficiencies that you mentioned, also Ms. Doan. The question is, though, is this in practice? I mean, there will be a body of, so to say, pre-arranged judges, yeah, who will be there. How is it at the moment, so to say, the consideration, this goes to both sides now, about the selection and also the impartiality of the members of the court and the tribunal? I mean, before the parties, so to say, choose their arbitrators, that was maybe not transparent, but at least, so to say, you had a say in it. Now we have a court where these members will be assigned, and of course this raises additional questions, and I mean for both of the sides, maybe also for the German side and also the Vietnamese sides, is how people are looking at recruiting judges, German, European, Vietnamese judges that are so to say qualified, that are suited to deal with these kind of disputes. Ms. Doan, you want to start?
Well, okay, so I will start first. With regard to the question about recruitment of judges, I think that there may be concern that how Vietnam can appoint qualified arbitrators or qualified judges to serve as the judge of the investment tribunal systems. And my answer is that actually the arbitration and lawyers industry in Vietnam now is very potential, and we have some very good development progresses in recent years. And if you are interested in legal professional in Vietnam, you can find some very famous names of arbitrators who practice in investment and commercial arbitration. And furthermore, investment arbitration nowadays is the topic attracting interest of the government, law education institutions, and I believe that Vietnam can appoint qualified law scholars to be judges at the investment court system. And actually, for more information, the government of Vietnam, especially the Ministry of Justice, we have training plan to training our personnel about investment arbitration, investment treaties, and this will be the human resources of Vietnam to appoint judges in the future. And for the questions about whether or not the investment court system can overcome the investor lawsuit against the government by issuing public interest, is that the question you mentioned, right?
Yeah, not at the moment, but I mean,
okay.
maybe we can take this
I'm
up.
sorry, I forgot the.
No problem.
The first
No problem, no problem. Maybe
me
we stick to this question now, because I think it would also be interesting to see Dr. Schoy's comments to this question, and we will take up the other question later. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I think that is an excellent question, because obviously no matter what you, what kind of substantive investment protection you grant, in the end it is important who actually decides and who sits on the bench. So the question of who is appointed to this tribunal is, of course, of utmost importance. The policy problem here is that we are coming from a system where many people have doubts or suspect that investment tribunals under the current form, where the disputing parties appoint the arbitrators, that these tribunals have a pro-investor tendency. I'm not convinced that this is actually the case, but this is, let's say, the spirit by which the whole investment court system was shaped. So you want a state-appointed tribunal only and a permanent tribunal. So, and here again, the danger is that we slip from one extreme to another, and that we get a tribunal which is too close to the government, so that we get a state-biased tribunal. That is what the investment community is at the moment very concerned of. But I also think that these concerns will not prove to be real in the end, because I am convinced that both sides, the EU and Vietnam, are well advised enough to appoint arbitrators to the arbitration panel, which have a balanced approach and which are not, let's say, it would be problematic to only appoint state oriented arbitrators. You also need arbitrators with a commercial expertise and who understand the business side of an investment dispute as well. So states have no interest, in fact, to appoint biased arbitrators. And of course, there is also a challenge procedure, so to make sure that there are no conflicts of interest. But the fact that we have a standing full-time tribunal is, of course, very helpful to avoid conflicts of interest up front. And just maybe one, I think this is an important clarification. This EVIPA panel is just a transitional solution, because the EU is now concluding these kind of agreements with many different countries, and we will end up to have standing investment tribunals for each single treaty, which makes no sense and which is extremely expensive to pay full-time arbitrators on hold. So the idea is, and this is also in the treaty explicitly mentioned, to merge that all these investment court systems will lead to one multilateral investment court, and this is a project probably at the moment going on at UNCITRAL, but I think this is the way we are actually heading.
Well, so one more point I want to add to Dr. Choi's answer is that you can look at the way the tribunal division is established. You will see that the tribunal division consists of 3 members, one from EU, one from Vietnam, and one from a third country. And the member from the third country will be the chair of the tribunal division, and the tribunal division will make the decision on the basis of consensus or the majority votes. So I think that it is one of the things that can ensure the independence and impartiality of the members of the tribunal.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I think this gives a very valuable outside. I mean, especially also seeing that this might in the end up in a more permanent court system, which maybe then also will be not necessarily cheaper than it was before, but that's probably one of the sides or the bad pills you have to swallow if you get, so to say, a certain benefit on the other side. Okay, I think we will wrap up this Q&A here at the moment. As said, there are other questions that we will take up in the panel discussion. So we go more into detail also for the legal questions of this. But let us, so to say, now conclude our panels with the last economic panel. Moment. Aha. Now I see here's the coffee break. I don't know what I ask. Luan, what's the intention? Was it intention to have the coffee break now and then the economic panel, or?
Yes, I would say yes. I think it's good to have a short break and then to have new energy for the
fair enough. Yes, I think everybody also earned this. So yes, please feel free to grab your latte, your café sur, your café now, whatever you have, or maybe just some water. And as said, we will assign you to the break room rooms. Please feel free to mingle around. It might be that not everybody is at the screen at the moment. So if there's so to say a black screen, don't feel offended. Yes, and then we will reconvene here in about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we are looking forward to the economic input as well as the panel discussion. Thank you very much. The coincidence granted you. Yes, thank you everybody for coming back with Zoom. It's much easier than going through the room and asking participants to please join again and close the doors. So I'm happy that we are all back, and we are now starting our last panel, which will deal with the economic side. And let me please share my screen with you again. To see the right one. So the economics panel, after our politics, the legal panel, now we are looking, so to say, to the topic from a different angle again, and thereafter we will have our panel discussion where we talk about everything and the questions also that you put in, and that I encourage you to continuously post on our Slido link. And for the panel discussion, as said, it would also be possible to raise your hand. So enough said. Now we are off to the economics panel. And here I'm very happy to welcome Marco Walde, the chief representative at the German Chamber of Industry and Commerce in Vietnam. I know Marco personally from my time in Vietnam, and it's great to see him here. He has been leading the delegation in Vietnam since 2011 already, and also restructured the two locations that you find in Ho Chi Minh City and in Hanoi, and largely expanded and also deepened the range of services offered by the German Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam. One of the highlights I myself remember is the organization of the Asia Pacific Conference 2014 in Vietnam, but also other topics that he dealt with, meaning, for example, dual vocational training in Vietnam, a German business incubator in Vietnam, as well as other projects. I know Marco has also a law degree. That's why he is also very happy, hopefully, to join our dry discussions. But he will now talk about, so to say, the more economic side, and he will talk about the importance of the EVIPA for small and medium-sized companies. Marco, the floor is yours.
Jan, thank you very much. And before I start with my speech, maybe some
sorry, Marco, I cannot hear you, but maybe that is my.
Is it okay now?
Yes, sorry, that was my bad. Please go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, but the first sentence was for you, Jan. Also, I'm really pleased to see you again here, and thank you very much for this very kind invitation. Allow me to make some points beforehand. I'm currently now in hotel quarantine here in Saigon because I just came back from Germany, and we have a slight delay, and so we're running out a bit of time. So I have to hurry up a bit with this presentation. And you correctly mentioned that I'm also a lawyer. And when I saw my counterpart here in this slot, the company from Rostock, so I'm from Schwerin, so from Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. And I studied in Rostock, and it's a very nice coincidence that we can meet here even the very first time. One word from the colleague from the embassy, we saw the statistic of investments, and also Jan mentioned that already. So Germany is not in a very good position in this statistics. So we are slightly before Luxembourg. That's a success. But we always have to keep in mind and to mention that in this statistic is just measured the origin of the capital. And the biggest German investments in Vietnam, they are not in the statistics. So think about Bosch as the biggest European investor in Vietnam. So they are not as a German investor indicated there. And also Siemens or B. Braun comes from Malaysia statistically. And so I'm always a bit careful to work with these numbers and this kind of statistic. Let me describe and wrap up a bit this background. What is the situation, especially for German companies and also for small and medium-sized companies right now in Vietnam? Vietnam right now is I would say, a very nice, a very attractive investment location right now already, also for German companies. What makes Vietnam special? So Vietnam, as you know, is a member state in the ASEAN Economic Community here in Southeast Asia, including 10 countries in total. From these 10 countries, just 4 countries are also part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership of the TPP-11 agreement. These are just 4 countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, and Vietnam. And from these 4 countries, just 2 countries negotiated and set in power a free trade agreement with the European Union, and these are Singapore and Vietnam. And so when you see these 2 countries in this region, then you can easily recognize that Vietnam, especially when we are talking about production, is in a very good position. And now since 2 or 3 years, we see another trend. We call it China +1, which means German companies invested in China 15 or 20 years ago, and they just have one investment location in Asia. They have to diversify their activities in Asia. They will, of course, they will continue with their investment in China, but beside China, they will develop a second investment location in Asia. And if the first one is in China, the second one should be outside, just to diversify some risks, to diversify the challenges, political risk. Please think about the trade war between US and China, or also other interruption risk for the global or for the regional supply chains. And here Vietnam is in a very good position. I mentioned that already. Of course, from the perspective of small or medium-sized companies, then you have to evaluate different investment location, different possibilities. Of course, here ASEAN in total is in a very good position, and inside ASEAN, this is our experience during the last 2 years. The companies normally they go either to Thailand, by the way, who needs already developed local supply chain. These companies, they find better conditions, investment conditions in Thailand today. And for all the other countries, for all the other companies, Vietnam is the most suitable investment location. And why I want to talk about small and medium-sized companies right now, we have between 300 and 400 German companies in Vietnam already. Our production companies, they created more or less 50,000 jobs here in the country. And if you see the trend, so the investment activities of German companies in Vietnam are really increasing despite the very difficult COVID situation right now. Small and medium-sized companies are the backbone of our German economy, and they are also the backbone of the Vietnamese economy. So I would say we have really something in common. And what we also reached last year, the very first time, that the trade turnover between Germany and Vietnam is the largest trade turnover in the whole ASEAN region. So in 2020, Vietnam became the #1 as a trading partner in ASEAN for Germany and for German companies. This helps also for investment. because every investment, of course, needs a good supply chain. So you have to be able to bring your goods in a smooth and hopefully uncomplicated way into the country. And of course, other the production, some of the goods also re-exporting. And here the free trade agreement is already very helpful. But now with the EVIPA, we really expect another boost of investments, because it will really increase the legal certainty for a German company, and especially for a small or medium-sized company. Why? Because small or medium-sized companies, they have limited resources. So these are not big companies. They have one investment development manager, one export manager, and not a whole department. So they really have to think about where I could put my money, my capital, and with a reliable background also. Sorry, with a reliable background, also develop one investment, this one shot, which I normally have when I want to find the right investment location. And here, Vietnam has some advantages right now. For example, you can set your own company, a company structure you can compare with the German GmbH. So it's a limited company, and you can act as a own shareholder alone. So you don't need a group of companies. So you can do it by yourself. You can do it with 100% of your charter capital by yourself, and you can develop your business and keep the business from the beginning in their own hands. This is one big advantage. This is just possible in Singapore, and I think right now also in Indonesia. Indonesia just opened up this opportunity this year. And of course, another advantage for Vietnam as an investment location is the staff. The people of Vietnam, they are really very busy, very hardworking, and really reliable, especially comparing with other countries here in the same region. And then we have another aspect. Of course, when you are investing, you need finance, and you have also to edge your risk and also the financial risk. You have to work with banks. And so it's really our hope and our expectation when the EVIPA comes in power that all the things you can create more reliable and also more bankable here in Vietnam. And you don't have to think about so much anymore about any back securities from the regional headquarter or from the worldwide headquarter, because what you ever have here, it's also litigable for this new courts which coming up. And maybe this is on the challenging side right now, that we also have, of course, courts here in Vietnam, but the legal system, the legal framework is totally different, or is different comparing with Germany. I just mentioned independence of courts. This is not the case based on the political system here. And also the administration system is really different, and from our German perspective, not always so transparent that we can easily manage all that. So to work with the administration here, I can tell you after 10 years working experience in Vietnam, it's never boring. And all the things I think we can in the future manage better with this EVIPA. And now also the free trade agreement opens new opportunities, especially also for small and medium-sized companies. Think about the medical care sector, the healthcare sector. German companies or European companies are the first time able to take part in a public tender. For example, for these hospitals, you can take part in the tender and you have the same possibilities as a local company. So this is quite new. And that means at the end of the day, you also have contracts with a government or with the sub-governmental bodies like hospital, like some state-owned agencies. And of course, this contract, if they are really litigable in front of a court this is independent and shares also our values and also our legal standards, I think this is a massive advantage comparing with the situation right now. And I think this is what we really expect, and especially regarding financial issues to make the claim and also the legal claim from the contracts or whatever you have, your right, your land use right, your ownership, what you have here. I think in the rating in front of a bank, of a local bank, but also in front of an international bank will be much higher with the new EVIPA. I think at the end, the EVIPA would really strengthen the legal framework and would increase the confidence from German small and medium-sized companies to the investment location here in Vietnam. And of course, at the end, we will see more investments also through this new agreement. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marco, for this wrap up there. Very interesting. I would like to move over now to our second speaker that we have on this panel, who will give us a little bit more of a, so to say, practical insight from his personal approach or personal ideas or plans in Vietnam. I welcome Mr. Eik-Uwe Papp. He is the owner and general manager of Baltic Taucherei und Bergungsbetrieb Rostock in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, as Marco already mentioned. So this panel has a real northeastern focus. The Baltic Taucherei und Bergungsbetrieb Rostock GmbH is an international subsea contractor founded in '93 and which has been active in about 9,000 projects around the world in more than 34 countries since. Besides being a commercial diver, he is a developer of subsea clearance technologies, as well as the pioneer of the German wind offshore industry. And he is also a member of the German-Vietnamese Innovation and Economic Forum. So Mr. Papp will give us an insight into his investment project into Vietnam, which concerns a new unexploded ordnance clearance technique for rivers in Vietnam. I'm sure we will get some more details on this. And he will also underline why the EVIPA is important for him as an investor to Vietnam. Mr. Papp, the floor is yours. Please share your screen. I will stop mine. Just give me a second here with all the different buttons. So please.
So welcome everybody. Give me a second to bring my presentation in place. Yeah. Okay. My name is Eik-Uwe Papp. I am the founder and managing director of Baltic Diver Germany, based in Rostock, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern on the Baltic Sea. So this company is 28 years old, and I'm the managing director. Next to me is our head of ROV department, let's say underwater robots. It's Atle, so my Norwegian department manager. Okay. So my brother and me, we are growing in East Germany, let's say the old communist part of Germany, and we start as a commercial diver with zero money in the pocket in May '93. So then we developed quite well, and now we are, I think, #4 in Europe as a commercial air supply diving company. Here you have an overview of our 1 hectare private-owned facilities, and we have a track record now of over 9,000 projects in 34 countries all over the world. Let's say the last project in Asia was one of the first tidal current turbines in South Korea. So we have more than 1,000 clients on our track record. These are our services. We have a quite big engineering department. We are one of the biggest diving companies, air supply diving companies in Europe. We have a huge underwater ROV department. We are doing maritime service, oil pollution, salvaging, and so on. And we have a subsea monitoring department. One of the biggest departments is the UXO clearance department. I will give you more details later on. And we are, since more or less 25 years in the hydraulic construction work. So here you have an overview of some projects in the past. So also the cable projects in the offshore wind industry is a big issue for us. We have our own fleet, and now we jump in this UXO world. Here you have some pictures from our projects. Let's say we removed 12 of these targets here. There's the first plain vessel rocket in the world, or here the first plain rocket in the world is built in 1944, and you see the actual condition of that rocket. So, and here you see the big bubble curtain, what we use to explode mines on other targets. Here you see one of the first special torpedoes and much more. So we start to remove UXO targets with divers almost 30 years ago. Then we jump in the world of underwater robots. Then we removed in the offshore sector the mines and the torpedoes. And a little bit later on, I show you the new technology, what we like to bring in place in Vietnam. Here, this is a picture from the river deepening Elbe, where we removed the UXO targets 24/7 without zero visibility, 20-meter water, 5 meters in the soil, 24/7, the whole week, day and night. And for that project, we developed a new machine. It's called multi-tool. And this is, it was a brilliant idea. And that is the idea to bring that kind of technology in the rivers in Vietnam, because this is the tool. You don't need any divers and you don't need an ROV. This is a remote operated, and we know the Vietnamese friends, they have a focus of to build up the infrastructure. And if you have too much bombs left and right of the bridges, you cannot develop your infrastructure. So that is our focus. Here you see the military attaché of the Republic of Vietnam on my barge in Hamburg. So we have already contacted them. I like to show you an animation how we are planning to work in the rivers in Vietnam. So we know the rivers in Vietnam, they have a current in one direction. And one second. So, and for sure, we need a proper survey to find the targets in the soil, in the river, in the seabed, in the ground. We have this technology, it's proven. We use it also in the North Sea and on other areas all over the world. So, and then we have an overview of potential ferromagnetic targets. So, and then we like to install a special barge with a current shield, and we have special sonar technology, quite unique electronic. They give us a view in, let's say, chocolate water. This is this invisibility water in the rivers in Vietnam, to find the target and to identify the target. So to work on site, we have to use a kind of current protection. Here you see an animation, how we plan this. Okay. So and that is our multi-tool, what we like to modify for the Vietnamese market. You have jet water, you can dredge the soil. You have all the electronic on the tool. And a little bit later, you will see how if we identify the target. So let me go one step back. So that was not easy to do a 3D animation to explain you this technology, but I think you can understand it more or less. So and then you see here the multi-tool, the basket open by remote control, and we can grab with one tool the target. Okay, and one second. So now I'd like to jump over to a special tool what we developed in our house. I like to hand over to Atle to explain you that a little bit.
Yes, hello, I'm Atle. I'm the head of the ROV and the remote department. Yeah. To operate in these kind of waters where we have explosives and where we have poor visibility, we need to use a lot of robotic instruments, and we've developed that over a long time. I've been working with this for 30 years. I started in '91 with ROVs and remote technology from Norway. And this technology we have developed here, we can use in the rivers or offshore in Vietnam when we have absolutely zero visibility, which we all know the rivers in Southeast Asia are very bad visibility. So we need to use our remote technology. And we can successfully use that with the combination of the experience that we have here in Europe on the development on the wind farms in the rivers in Germany, where we have removed such targets before. And here you can see a standard ROV, was a remote operated vehicle that our pilots and computers are operating. And when they identify a bomb or a target, we use suction like a vacuum cleaner to remove the soil around it. We can get a clear view of it, either with visual, with video, or with our sensors. This way, the experts can say this is an explosive and we need to remove it or detonate it, or it is just steel scrap that we can remove with a grabber. We're also using smaller units that can be deployed into smaller rivers where we don't need the big machines to identify what we have. And here you go, you can see the ROV is doing a very totally automated movement. So no pilot or anything, you just follow the instruments on the machine to identify everything. And if we find a target and we need to explode it, we have devices that sets off the target without the interference of people. Everything is safe, and we do it controlled by remote. And this way we can clean up the rivers or any work sites in the future, for example, offshore, when you are going to install a typical wind farm where it needs to be very clean before we install anything on the seabed. Here you can see a picture of our latest model, which is what we call a ROV carrier. It can compare it to a tractor. It can carry all different tools but it's the same robotic machine. We can do pipelines, we can remove targets, we can bury pipelines or fiber optic cable in the seabed. We can remove oil from sunken vessels. And it's a multi-tool, what we call an ROV carrier. And this one we are looking to potentially produce in Vietnam together with our partners in Vietnam. So we can do a technology transfer and a setup in Vietnam for fabrication, and also especially for training of people. There's very good engineers in Vietnam, where I myself have spent several years in the past building up an ROV company in Vũng Tàu. So we know the skills of the Vietnamese. We would like to go there. And this is some of my former staff in Vietnam, where we have done technology training and transfer. And we like now to do this into the next level and bring our technology to Vietnam, and also take the Vietnamese up to our area, because, well, to be honest, we are lack of personnel up here with good training, and it could be a win-win from our side.
So thank you very much, Atle. So, but first of all, we have a focus with our multi-tool to go in the rivers. That is the priority in the moment. And maybe somebody have questions from your side. Here we have a track record with our multi-tool in Hamburg, in the canal, vessel canal between Baltic Sea and North Sea, and that is on the North Sea. Here you see a screenshot of our computer-controlled sonar that gives us a view of the target, and this is a mine. This is also a mine. This is a huge bomb. Give us a view of the object in invisibility water. Okay, but come back to the topic. That is the multi-tool. And here you see this rough carrier that we'll have to use under the bridge, where the equipment, the crane and the excavator have no access. So, okay. The challenges. So first of all, we need the acceptance of the Vietnamese government and the provinces, for sure, in cooperation with the Ministry of Defense. Other challenges are definitely the legal support, insurances, contracting, project financing on long-term, local responsibilities in the context of ammunition clearance, emergency response, communication languages, and much more. So that will be interesting challenge to go to Vietnam to remove that kind of targets with a unique technology. So that was my overview in this limited time what we have. So if somebody of you have any questions, feel welcome.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Papp, and also your colleague for this insight. Also giving a little bit more practical visualization to the more theoretical problems that we are, so to say, generally talking about the investment protection agreement and the free trade agreement and whatever. Very exciting overview to see this. Could you please stop your screen sharing? Then I could, so to say, continue here with mine. Because I would now go directly into, so to say, take the questions now.
Wait a second, give me a second.
Yes, I would then, so to say, also gather us together in the panel discussion, where I then would, so to say, incorporate the question and answer also for this panel. So we have a smoother overlap here. I think now you should see also, again, here the panel discussion. Again, please post your questions. We have a lot. Also, you are welcome to raise your hands. We will be actively looking for the raised hands. Please be patient in case we overlook it for a moment. But we will, so to say, be with you, and also happy to take your questions directly if you want. Please only unmute yourself and put on your video if you're talking. Yes, maybe to shortly, so to say, connect to the presentations that we just had. Mr. Papp, you also mentioned the challenges that you have there, and I think this is also what, so to say, your expectations from the EVIPA and probably also the trade agreement, where this, so to say, aligns. So I think we can already see from there that for you as a small medium enterprise investing in Vietnam, this is a certain benefit that also Marco Walde and the other speakers mentioned. Maybe just to give us a regional wrap up of what you showed there. I mean, Vietnam has a lot of rivers. You have the Mekong Delta, you have the Red River in Hanoi. Where exactly are you looking, at what rivers are you looking at the moment?
First of all, we like to start the communication with the experts in Vietnam to, let's say, to find a solution to grow up a joint venture for this know-how transfer. And then we have to ask our friends in Vietnam where their priority. So this is not in our hand to say we start like here or there. We have to ask our local friends where is the most important bridge in the moment, and then we are starting the engineering, the risk assessment, so all the challenges what we have in front. So that is our idea, you know.
Okay, yes, great. There was also a question how the Vietnamese people could profit from your investment, but I think that's somehow self-explanatory, from at least from my point of view. I mean, taking out unexploded devices, which I mean we in Germany have, and I'm sure in Vietnam there's also a lot of this in the rivers, is definitely a benefit for the people, for the investments, the bridges, but also the local people that live nearby. Marco, let me also pose a little question to you. There is some talking in the background for somebody, but oh yeah, now we're quiet again. Just a question to you. You already also outlined the benefits that you see from the EVIPA and also the free trade agreement. What always was interesting from my side, also during my time in Vietnam, and I will put this question to you, maybe you have some additional insight from also dealing with investors. How do you have any experience on how the current bilateral investment treaty there between Germany and Vietnam, how this has actually been worked out in practice? Were there a lot of cases? Do you have any personal experience on, so to say, the status quo that hopefully will, so to say, improve with the new EVIPA?
Of course, so this is a forecast which is very difficult, but we have experiences now from the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement. And here we see clearly so far, especially that the Vietnamese companies, they really benefit from this agreement. And we see a big increase of the export volume from Vietnam to Germany and to Europe at all. So this is what we can measure right now. I mentioned also before, for Germany, Vietnam is the biggest trade partner in ASEAN, so the very first time. And I think this is also caused by this free trade agreement. And I think this is what we can measure right now. But we don't have exact numbers from of the influence of to the German exports to Vietnam. But vice versa, I think we have impressive figures right now. Maybe one word to Mr. Papp, to go for a joint venture. So this is not the first choice right now for German small and medium-sized companies. So this is also maybe answering the question before, how benefits the Vietnamese society if you go for a joint venture. So there's also a Vietnamese stake in this future company. And I think especially for you, the EVIPA so is highly relevant to improve the legal framework and to give you a bit more confidence in the structure what you are planned for right now. And maybe a last hint, you talked about the technology transfer. Here in the Eurochem, in the European Chamber of Industry and Commerce, there is a IPR help desk. So they offer a consultation for free. I strongly recommend you maybe make a phone call or have an email exchange with them. So to get first hints, and there are some mistakes you can really avoid.
Thank you very much. I think we will contact Mr. Walde on the bilateral way. But let's say the first response, the first reply from our friends in Vietnam was so great that we are motivated to we'll use time. We start communication as soon as possible and plan the first trip soon.
Okay, very nice. And I personally would really pleased to support you. Especially I'm from the same region, and so it's not so often in Vietnam to meet people from Mecklenburg. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Yes, great. Thank you as well. Maybe a more general question connecting to this, also to Dr. Nguyen, and of course to everybody on the panel who would like to contribute. I mean, for the moment, the EVIPA is, so to say, not ratified that, but it's in the waiting. What is your experience? Are the foreign investors already actively asking about the EVIPA? And if they do, how do you cope with the current situation, given that there is some uncertainty on when this actually will be ratified? Dr. Nguyen, maybe you want to comment on this?
Yeah, thank you. That is also eventually I don't have much information on the German businesses in terms of whether they have the real problem in terms of I mean the legal system in Vietnam. Basically, I don't see, I don't have been reported any serious cases about the dispute of the German business in Vietnam. And I think Marco maybe have more information on that. But I think for the treaty, so up to now, if they from my personal view, I think if you have any problem related to the legal issues while investing in Vietnam, the German businesses also contact the foreign direct investment in Vietnam and also Ministry of Planning Investment. So we will also try to solve the issue with the current legal framework. And for that, I think this, of course, because we, as any businesses, FDI businesses in Vietnam, so we also, the business are also protected by the current law of Vietnam as well. So I hope that this is still a fair legal environment now. Of course, the EVIPA will be a much improved tools for the EU business as well as German business while investing in Vietnam. So that's what I have the information up to now. But I think for any case, I think they are also protected in Vietnam. Of course, if we have more specific and also as well as the very good legal framework like EVIPA, so the situation would be better. And up to now, so I think it's still okay. Maybe I don't know there is any other situation, but of course I have information from others FDI businesses disputed in Vietnam, but not German one. Thank you. Yeah.
Can I say something following Dr. Nguyễn Mạnh Hải sentences?
Yeah, please. Yeah. Thank you.
Investment protection of German's investor in Vietnam. Actually, even so, you can see that EVIPA has not ratified by all the EU members, so it cannot come into force now. But between Vietnam and Germany, we have a bilateral investment protection agreement that was signed in 1993. And while waiting the EVIPA to come into force, if any German investor want to have a claims against Vietnamese government or something of that kind, you can invoke the bilateral investment treaty between Vietnam and Germany. For more information, during my time working with the Ministry of Justice of Vietnam, I have not seen any claim of investment, of German investors against Vietnam. So I feel that somehow they are satisfied with the legal and economic environments in Vietnam.
Yeah, thank you very much. I see also, because the question came up, Marco, do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, so thank you very much. Of course, so this is a very wide topic right now, and I also can confirm. So my last 10 years working in Vietnam, I also saw just a very few really heavy difficulties for German companies in Vietnam so far. So maybe to give you another example, before I worked in Romania, and before Romania I worked in Poland. So here we had much more difficulties, many single cases, and comparing with the situation here in Vietnam, it's really quite comfortable. But anyway, when you start to think from a company perspective, of course you're right. So nobody is calling this bilateral German-Vietnam investment protection agreement. Why? Especially for small and medium-sized companies, to start with a lawsuit. Yeah, it takes a lot of years, and of course, every company will make a calculation, reliable risk management, and if you have the perspective to call a court, and you have a perspective of 5 or 7 or 8 or 10 years, so this is not economically, and therefore I think we don't see any cases. What is my point is. Of course, everybody should be aware, coming to Vietnam, you will come in situation what you cannot understand immediately. Maybe allow me to give me one very small example, because right now I'm in the same situation. And this is also not a complaint, but the Ministry of Health in Vietnam, they published a directive that for fully vaccinated people, they can shorten the quarantine time till 7 days. For most of our flight passengers now, the 7 days were over today. But what they didn't mention is that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they have to implement that. And as you know, coming from Europe, we have this European vaccination certificate, and we have from the World Health Organization, every German people, we have this yellow book. But right now, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they don't recognize our certification. That means the people cannot go out by today, and they have to be prepared for 1 more week in quarantine. And this is what you cannot understand immediately when you come to a country from Vietnam and you hear there's a rule from one ministry and the second one say, oh, no, we have to implement a procedure. And finally, from a company or from a people perspective, in my example, the result is you cannot use the benefit what is given by one ministry in charge. So, and we have a lot of small things. I could continue. Yeah, when you have a company, you have a business license, you can produce a certain part of this, what you want to produce, what you want to manufacture, and you want to start with a vocational training system in your own company, this is still okay. But if you want to do it with other companies in your neighborhood to increase efficiency, to have an exchange, to start a vocational training program, this is not included in your business license. And this is what you cannot do immediately by yourself. And this is what companies really need. So when, especially German companies, we are looking for a long-term investment perspective. Normally you invest in the latest equipment, and to work with the latest equipment, you need educated people. And you should be able also to educate your own staff and maybe also to bundle the same interest in education also with other companies. As I mentioned, everything is manageable, but you have to know certain things beforehand, and you have to be prepared for some hiccups, what you don't know when you come from Germany or from other countries. As I told you, I'm 10 years now here. It's a great investment locations. And from the first day, our organization and also myself, we really do everything to foster our business relations. And still today, I would say to every company, Vietnam is really a great country to invest, but you have to be well prepared and maybe also think about your business case and your perspective for the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, thank you, Marco, for also this practical insight there. Mr. Scheu, I saw that you also wanted to mention something, please.
Yes, thank you. I just want to add a little, a short comment from a more legal perspective, which I think fits into our discussion on how to evaluate the efficiency of the current legal framework. Because evaluating the efficiency of an investment protection agreement is a very difficult task, because you can, it basically works invisibly. You only see the hard facts. You see, are the arbitrations conducted under such an agreement? And these may be a few investment disputes. And as Marco Walde pointed out, it is often not practical for an investor to pursue an arbitration claim, because it's costly, because it takes long, and because it's usually the last time that you do business in this country, because things have so much escalated. However, the importance of investment protection under international law is that it enables foreign investors, it gives them a legal tool to enter into negotiations when there is a dispute coming up. As an investor, you not only have the local domestic legal framework, but you can recall to the government that it has obligations under international law. And only this reminder sometimes helps to, let's say, clarify things and make sure that the government takes the position of the investor seriously. So it would be too short to just look at the case numbers to evaluate the efficiency of an international investment agreement. And the second comment is with respect to the added value of the EVIPA. It is true that Vietnam has already many investment treaties in place with many other countries, so most of foreign direct investments are already covered. But what the EVIPA will do, it will not only let's say, provide a state-of-the-art legal framework, but it is also a unified European framework. And I think this is something very important, especially for larger European investors who are active in many European countries. They don't have to look into each trade, each national treaty, but now they have one reliable legal framework. And for those of you, especially in the audience, who are interested in getting information, I will just briefly share a link to a very useful website conducted by UNCTAD, This is a very good open source database where you can find all investment treaties concluded and ratified by Vietnam, and you have an overview of all publicly known investment disputes. I think this is also a helpful research. I use it all the time in my research day-to-day work.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Choi. This is a very valuable and interesting link. Thank you, and also thank you for, so to say, bringing up or bringing this into the broader legal context also of the agreements. I see that we also have one of the participants who raised his hands and doing this already for a long time. Tuan, I will give you the word. I hope you're still with us. Please unmute yourself and turn on your video if you like for your question to the panel.
Okay, all right. Can you hear me and see me, I hope? All right. Hello, everyone. This is Tuan from DCI Legal. Right. Well, thank you. I just like to add quickly into what our speaker and our presenter already covered. That, you know, indeed we do know that there are more than one situation whereby German investment is in complication. Actually, it was lost, and it is you know, it's significant. And the investor is considering taking legal action under investment protection treaty. Yeah, unfortunately for confident matter, it is not public nowadays. But yes, I do know, we're quite familiar with it. Indeed, there are more than one situation, but that's normal. I think that is what the investment protection treaty in place for. And the fact is that, you know, Vietnam is one of the most open economy in the world, using the term of the trade agreement and investment protection agreement onto this, because Vietnam is a member of a number of different investment protection as well as free trade agreement. And you know, you have the bilateral one between Vietnam and Germany, as well as Vietnam and many other, you know, European countries like France, like the UK, like different you know, significant territory or economy in Europe. So as well as ASEAN's or American you know, economy. So you are not limited onto using the EVIPA only. You are also able to use the other investment protection treaty of any other you know, country, any other territory that have the treaty signed with Vietnam, and you happen to have a, you know, company open in that. Let's say a German investor happen to or have a Singaporean company open in Singapore. So it you know, it will be fully covered under the ASEAN and the AFTA and the Singaporean Vietnamese bilateral treaty. And the same thing go for, you know, CPTPP, CPTPP, you know. So if you only need to have a legal entity, or you're doing business, you register your business in one of those economy or territory, then you would be able to do that. As a law firm, we happen to, you know, involve ourselves quite a bit on this front. We currently represent, you know, 2 European client and 2 American client, and other 2 ASEAN client in investment protection matter, which is why we're familiar with that.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Juan. If you could, do you have a sorry to interrupt, but do you have a specific question now? Otherwise, I would also ask the others to comment a little bit on this. Is there a specific question that you have to the panel, or?
It's not a question, it's just a very quick comment. So just to add on to the point that already been covered, that you don't, it is true that, you know, investment protection, you know, litigation is costly. It is true, and most of the small and medium-sized company wouldn't be able to afford it. But do not forget one thing, which is there's some other mechanism in place called investment protection mediation. Yeah. That is a whole lot cheaper and a whole lot more easy to use and a whole lot more friendly in using to negotiate with the Vietnamese government. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. I mean, Dr. Choi, I think it was mentioned now also the Singaporean agreement, which we also understand is, so to say, also kind of a new area. Investment protection agreement. Maybe you can shortly comment on the Singaporean agreement. Is it the same? Is it different? Is there already some experience there? Something to learn for Vietnam from Singapore or from even the other IPAs that are in place?
Yes, for sure. So the EU-Singapore treaty project was one of the first ones with the CETA project with Canada. And it is interesting and we can learn from it in a sense that we observe that we are exactly in the same position like in the case of the EVIPA. So we have a Singapore EU trade agreement, which is in force, and we have a Singapore EU investment protection agreement, which is ratified from the Vietnamese side, if I'm not mistaken, but the European ratification is still pending. So I think this shows that the situation with the EVIPA is not a single incident, but is just an illustration of a broader systemic problem we have within the European Union. We just have to be faster when it comes to ratify international trade and investment treaties.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nguyen, I see that you also raised your hand. Do you have some additional comments in this respect?
Yeah, I just have one more small additional comment that the policy environment in Vietnam in general and the investment policies in particular are incomplete yet, and we are in the process of complete or improve the policy environment. And with the EVIPA, if it is ratified, so this is also one of the pressure for the domestic policy reform, which is very good for Vietnam in terms of improving the policy environment as well. And of course, under the investors are already protected by the current investment protection agreement. But I think the EVIPA will be a better solution for the not EU investor, but also the others, own FDI investor and also Vietnamese investors in EU as well. So I mean, in that sense, I think it's good for the policy improvement in Vietnam, so that we can also match with the international standards and in international laws in the coming time. So, and that's what I hope so. I hope for. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Maybe one of the points that also came up concerned a bit the enforcement of the decision that are taken by the tribunal, and there maybe also now looking at Vietnam, Ms. Doan and everybody else who would like to comment on this, about how should Vietnam so to say internalize the law to be consistent with the provisions, or maybe you can also address what, so to say, needs to be done at the moment. I know from my personal experience, also from arbitration, that, so to say, this is a process in Vietnam that is ongoing, that where also Vietnam takes steps to get more professional, to get more transparent in this whole enforcement process. And I understood that there was also in 2002 this resolution that has been adopted. Maybe you can shed some light, some more light on this to understand how Vietnam now is preparing for the actual enforcement of the decisions by the tribunal to have this, so to say, smoothly implemented?
Well, sir, thank you very much for the question. First of all, let me explain a little bit about lawmaking process in Vietnam under our law on legal normative documents. Normally, before a draft law is proposed to our National Assembly for discussing and passing, the draft law is apprised checked by the Ministry of Justice very carefully to see whether or not the draft law is in conflict with any international agreements of Vietnam. And if the draft law contains any differences with international agreements of Vietnam, it will not go to the National Assembly at all. And in addition, in the duration of a law drafting, the law drafting committee will call for comments from many government agencies, enterprises, and stakeholders of that law. So that's the procedurals. That's the compulsory procedurals when we make a law. And by this way, we can ensure that the law we make is compatible with our international agreements. And for preparing for the implementation of EVIPA, we have issued a resolution of the National Assembly on recognition and enforcement of awards rendered by the investment court system under EVIPA. And of course, that resolution is compatible with the EVIPA and the New York Conventions on recognition and enforcement of foreign arbitral awards. Yes, that's my question for the enforcement of awards rendered under EVIPA.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Shaw, you want to take up this point?
That's a very good question Mrs. Dawn raises, because I think it is a very difficult one and a delicate one, because it is at the moment under the current system clear that arbitral awards rendered by, let's say, an ICSID tribunal under ICSID arbitration rules is enforceable under the ICSID convention all over the world. However, it is not 100% clear whether the investment court system will be recognized as being an arbitral award under these conventions. So the big advantage of the current investment arbitration system is that we have a proved, more or less a bulletproof enforcement system which works worldwide. And since the investment court system is a permanent court, it is not sure, or there are, let's say, open legal questions whether courts will recognize these as being arbitral awards. But I think there is one example which shows that these awards are enforceable, is the Iran-US Claims Tribunal, which is a permanent arbitration tribunal seated in The Hague, which has rendered hundreds of awards recognized by several courts under the New York Convention. And I think the structure is, the institutional structure is quite comparable. So I think there are good chances that the awards will be enforceable as well.
Yes, thank you very much for this insight as well. Maybe one other aspect I think that is also of relevance and is also something that, at least from the German point of view, was very much discussed. This is about the transparency that, so to say, is intended to be achieved under the new regulations. Maybe Dr. Choi, Mr. Wan, or whoever want to shortly comment on this. What does it mean in practice for the investor for his claim? Is it possible to already make some predictions in this respect? Will there be a change? Mr. Wan, Dr. Choi?
Well, I think it's really hard questions. In my point of view, with the new generation of investment treaties now and the case law in international investment arbitration, we now can expect that the ISDS system will be more coherent and predictable in the future, subject to the success of our effort to reform the ISDS systems. I mean that for now it is not easy to say about the future of investors that dispute settlement, but we can have a long vision that after the ISDS reform is successfully carried out by the ancestral and the country's member, we can address and resolve on the defects of the current system, and we can expect about a more fairer and more transparent ISDS system in the future.
Okay, Dr. Choi, you would like to add?
Yes, just very briefly. I think if one systemic deficiency of the traditional investment system is more or less undisputed, is the lack of transparency. I think even within the investment arbitration community, lawyers who are maybe very reluctant with structural reforms have understood that transparency is a requirement, a rule of law requirement, basically, especially when public money is involved, and that is what investment arbitration is always about. But maybe transparency is also a separate question, because it is something which can be put in place by traditional tribunals as well. So we see already today a high degree of transparency. We see even tribunals who stream their hearings online. All the briefs are published on websites. So the degree of transparency has become much higher than it used to be. But the problem is that we don't have an absolute transparency in a sense that those dispute settlement procedures which are conducted in a transparent way, the degree of transparency is good, but there are many more investment disputes which are not known to the public. So this is still a field where reforms will have to keep forward.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. We are nearing a little bit the end of our proposed timeline. I saw that there was an interesting question also here in the Zoom chat about the Singapore Convention on Mediation that apparently, as far as I understand, Vietnam has not signed yet today, but maybe it's interesting to maybe comment shortly on how this, so to say, might play together with the different investment protection agreements. Ms. Doan, Dr. Choi, anybody else? You have any thoughts on this?
First, actually, for your information, the Ministry of Justice of Vietnam is carrying out a research project on the possibility for Vietnam to ratify, to access the Singapore Convention. And after the research, we will make a recommendation to the Prime Minister of Vietnam on whether or not Vietnam should be a member of the Singapore Convention. In the project research, in the research we have quite a lot of different views on whether or not Vietnam should be a member of Singapore Convention. For lawyers, arbitrators, and mediators, of course they want Vietnam to be a member of Singapore Convention. And for judges and government agency, they have a very careful approach about accessing the Singapore Convention, considering the ability to implement the convention in the future. From my point of view, I am, for your information, I am one of the researchers in that project. And from my point of view, I think that Vietnam would access the Singapore Convention in the future, but they may have some kind of reservation with regard to settlement agreement with investment mediations, because some of cases in Vietnam reflecting that mediation sometimes is not very useful, and it may prolong the proceeding. Yeah, so it's one of it's my personal point of view. It's not the point of view of the Ministry of Justice or Vietnam. That's my personal point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this with us. Dr. Choi, you would like to shortly.
Yes, exactly. Very, very short. I think that the Singapore Convention is indeed a milestone when it comes to settling international commercial disputes. However, my prediction would be that its relevance for investor-state mediation is limited, because it's all about the enforcement of such mediated settlement agreements. And I think there is no real need in investment dispute settlement for enforcing mediation settlements, because either the investor and the state, they settle the dispute by mediation, and then the story is over, or they go to arbitration, because there is already such an efficient investment arbitration mechanism in place.
Yeah, I want to add something that before mediation, consultation is a compulsory phrases in dispute settlement between investor and the state. And if the dispute can be settled or not, it depends a lot on the consultation. So some states, they don't want to go to mediation because they think that it's a waste of time, because they fail from the consultation phase.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. I have a lot of more questions here, but I think unfortunately our time is limited. A last question that I found interesting, but I will leave it, so to say, for everybody to answer to him or herself, is: are there any cultural impacts that all parties get from this agreement, besides the industry and main fields that you mentioned? I mean, we talked about a lot the industrial, the legal aspects. Interesting questions. Cultural impacts from the EVIPA. I don't know if there is, so to say, a spontaneous comment from the round. From my point of view, the cultural impact would, when hopefully we are all able to travel again, that this agreement also support and facilitate that we visit Vietnam, that we come to Europe, and also culturally interact and exchange there. That would be, so to say, my cultural upside from there. I think I have to close the panel right now, and thank you for all the participants in the panel, very lively discussion. We will sum up some of the questions and also, if possible, share this. I would like to hand over the word now to Peter Korn, who is the Vice Chairman of the German-Vietnamese Lawyers Association. Peter, the floor is yours. You have to unmute. Now should work.
So thank you, Jan. So the last words belong to me. Actually, that's a great honor. Last words can be as pointy as those of the physical education teacher or spears to me. Even more appropriate for our conference may be the Greek philosopher Epicurus, who said, "Now farewell, and all remember all my words." Exactly 60 years ago, on August 13, 1961, a wall was built, splitting Germany in a western and an eastern part, making visible the differences of political doctrines, the allies who fought together in World War II, and together overcame the worst enemy. I was born in Eastern Germany, as was Mr. Papp. Now I'm living and working in a reunified Germany, and it doesn't matter anymore on which side I am. Except sometimes when as a lawyer I would like to win a hopeless case. For my part, our conference broke down walls of ignorance and built bridges to people and legal matters of Germany and Vietnam that I haven't known before. That is the main purpose of the German-Vietnamese Lawyers Association. So if you feel the same, if you share this purpose, you should become a member of our association. You're very welcome to do so, and you can contact us on our website or by social media. I very much appreciate the tremendous work and achievements of all those who helped us to make this conference happen. Thank you all. Thanks to our speakers, Lai Thi Vanan, Svetlana Sharvoronkova, I'm still battling with the names, Dr. Nguyen Man Hai, Dr. Adrian Bothe, Dr. Julian Choi, Duan Tan Nguyen, Marco Walde, und Ike Uwe Papp. Thanks to all participants of our conference in Germany, Vietnam, and from wherever you joined us today. My special thanks to our moderator, Dr. Jan Dijksel. You did a great job. To CVDUC for all the technical and creative support, to our Chief of Communication, Jean-Claude Alexandre Ho, and Tao Wau, who helped him with the marketing of our conference. And of course, to the chairwoman of our association, Luan Truong. I hope that you consider the past hours a good investment. I'm very much looking forward to our next meeting. Until then, please take care, stay in good health, and let's overcome the COVID-19 pandemic together. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Yes, thank you, everybody.